This is my Toolbox Talk presentation, and the hazard that I identified at my workplace Need the Dough is a physical hazard of slips, trips, and falls. So at my work, they're easily occurring as the workspace is very confined and orders are completed and then stacked in the delivery order. There are empty crates stacked around us so that we can use them for our orders, and the floor is covered in flour, breadcrumbs, and other foodstuffs such as icing from baking and when we pack our orders. So my example of the hazard at work is that Ashley, our primary slicer, while she was slicing bread one day, she stepped backwards to collect a new order and put her foot into an empty crate, slid, and then fell over. As a result of that, she couldn't work for about 10-15 minutes as it hurt to stand up, it hurt to sit down. She was kind of awkwardly crouched. We filled out an incident report and then just organised a way in which our orders aren't placed in such a hazardous way. So now instead of having individual crates stacked along our workspace, they are instead stacked multiple. So this is an image of our bread slicer, and this is the image of our crates. So it's quite easy to see how the crates are very slippery and our floor surface is a non-stick floor. So crates do slide on it because the purpose of the floor is so that all the bread, the crumbs, the icing sugar, everything doesn't stick to it. The cause of the hazard was crates on the floor plus a combination of the flour and the foodstuffs. It's a nightly occurrence, and we clean the floor every morning after we've finished packaging. And so we've just realized that the crates need to be stacked together rather than individually to minimize the opportunity to put your foot in it, because once they reach a certain height, you'd have to step very high to get your foot back into it. So the effect from the hazard was that Ashley was a bit bruised. We had to rethink our stacking system, and the new system was implemented within 5-10 minutes of the incident. And we try to maintain a general tidiness of the floor. Ashley was bruised for a couple of days. Nothing serious. It didn't require her to go to the doctors. But we had to go through the possible control methods for such a hazard. So we eliminated as many crates as we possibly could and substituted for multiple crates in a stack rather than single stack. We already have a non-slip floor, so there's nothing we could do about that, because between the flour and the crates, it does create a slip. There are a few different legislations regarding health and safety in the workplace. So the Occupational Health and Safety Act 2004 requires that employers, as much as they can, provide a safe working environment. And in my workplace, that is what we have. As far as it can be, that is a safe working environment. So we have organizational policies and procedures relating to work health safety. So for hazard identification, we have a work health safety inspection every month. We're actually due for one this week. Anything out of order is then reported to the owner, who tries to either eliminate the hazard or to control it. So presently we have electrical cords running from our machines to the power points that are too long. They need to be shortened, and we're waiting for them to be shortened. But while we wait, they've been cable tied so that they can't come loose and you can't slip on them. If an incident does occur, we just file an incident report and then look at how the incident happened. Generally, that's done between all the employees, and we note if anyone else is also having issues with similar things. We are kept up to date on everything at work, so if there is a new hazard, we are told as soon as it's been identified. We might get a text message, we might have a meeting before work starts, and we just get told to avoid it or work around it or what's going to be done about it. By consulting with us and by consulting with other employees, the severity of the hazard is reduced, and we work out a timeline to treat the hazard as well. This then makes staff all aware of the hazard and to avoid it as much as possible, and it is of the utmost importance that the staff are all aware of the hazard, as this in itself can help reduce the likelihood of an incident. So we all get consulted within 24 hours of a hazard being identified, and we're all aware of hazards through word of mouth. We don't have email at my work. By consulting, we then reduce the hazard potential, and with the work health safety consultants during our inspections, they note to us things that could become hazards. This then allows us time for it to be handled before it becomes an actual hazard. Hazards are always dealt with after their discovery, whether it be by elimination, substitution, or isolation. And within 24 hours of an inspection, areas that are identified as hazardous are isolated so that they can be dealt with. Sometimes it's even things such as just cleaning certain areas better, so cleaning under the workbenches so that buckets don't slip off due to flour accumulation. Legislation, as I said, Occupational Health and Safety Act, safe working environment needs to be provided, but employees also have a duty to maintain their own health and to notify the employer if they notice a hazard. So for our workplace, although the initial aim is to ensure a safe work environment, if an incident is to occur, then it needs to be rethought. So for us, the crates were then rethought because the floor was already provided with as being safe. We then just had to implement a new system through our own safety. And it's not just our safety as well, it's also our employer's safety. He doesn't wish to be in trouble for negligence or anything like that. So the legislation discusses the 4-step process to identify, assess, control, and review hazards. That is the 4-step process, so that you can successfully isolate and treat them. In the future, we'll just continue with calling a meeting at work. This meeting then we can ask anyone if they've noticed any additional hazards. We can also ask the owner if there's been any headway in containing or remedying previously identified hazards, such as the cables for our machines. We also frequently do this because of our how frequent our health and safety inspections are. We are constantly going through various ways to identify hazards, and for our cleaning hazards, we have a roster set up so that every day we do a new cleaning activity, not new, and and concentrate on certain areas that might otherwise be neglected because they're not the common areas. So we always have a meeting at least once a month, and are always notified within 24 hours of a hazard. With our hazard information, we have a storage area at the back of the bakery that contains all our paperwork. So the incident reports is in its own folder, organized into tables so that you can just file a new incident and all the details that occurred from it. It also contains all our medical first aid reports that if we have a first aid incident occur, we can, even if it's just to use a Band-Aid, you write it up in the first aid report. We also have to reduce the hazards in the workplace. We also have instruction guides for all of our machinery so that we don't cause additional hazards. So here is our slicing manual. We have standard operating procedures as well. And now when we instruct new employees on how to slice bread, we specify not to place crates behind them, and that it needs to be done in a way that you keep your space clear and easily accessible. So now we stack all orders for first, second, third with how we want them to be picked up by the slicer or the roll packages. It's a somewhat effective system. It can have further improvements made to it. I think most of the things at my workplace could have further improvements made to it. But currently it works. It's a system that works. We've not had any more incidents since. Thank goodness. We're just working on training new employees.